Hello! In part 2 of this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to dress the bed. And to begin with we'll be making the mattress, and for that I've used this upholstery foam which is 15mm or just under 5/8 of an inch thick, nice and soft, and we're going to back that onto a piece of card, so just any piece of card, cereal packet card would be fine. Then you'll need some fabrics for the bedding. And I've just chosen these 3 fabrics, and I always find this to be quite a good combination: a plain, a patterned and a checked in a similar colour scheme, and they always go together quite nicely. But obviously whatever fabric you've got, whatever sort of colour scheme you want to do. And then for stuffing the cushions I use sesame seeds, or you could use flax seeds, and I just find that seeds rather than stuffing just give them a more natural look, make them look a bit heavier. And a funnel, obviously to get them inside the cushion, or just a rolled up piece of paper you could use to do that. Obviously you'll need your sewing kit, and I always hand stitch, but you might want to use your machine. For the glue, we just glue along the seams of the cushions and the bedding. I've used this Gorilla Glue and I find it to be a really good multi-purpose glue, but you could also use any sort of fabric glue. And then I used cocktail sticks to apply the glue along the seams. And then you'll need your ruler and pencil for measuring out the fabric, and I'll give you all the measurements as we go along. Okay, let's get started. So now we're going to make the mattress. So cut a piece of card that is just slightly smaller than the bed on all sides, so just about 1mm off at the top and bottom and the sides, and that's just so that when we've added the fabric that will still fit nicely on there. And then cut a piece of the foam just slightly bigger than your card. I'm going to apply glue to the card. I'm just going to use this glue spreader to spread that over the surface. Get that into all the corners. Okay, so then apply that to the foam. And I'm going to weigh this down with some books, but I'm just going to lay a piece of kitchen towel over the top, and that's just so you don't get those glue smears onto the back of all your best books. So weigh that down and then just leave that for the glue to dry. So once you've allowed enough time for the glue to dry, you can cut round the card. So using the fabric you want for your mattress cover, and I always think a plain colour looks better over the mattress, but it's entirely up to you. Cut a piece that's about 40mm or 1.5 inches wider all the way round, and then place the mattress so that it's sitting centrally on there, and just take your ruler, and we're going to just go across each corner section. So lay the ruler level with the mattress and then go across lengthways like that, just at each end, and the same on the other side. Like that, and then you want to do it going that way as well. We're basically just drawing a square at each corner. I'm just laying the ruler just a couple of millimetres away from the mattress so that we've got a little bit at each corner, and then cut out each of those squares. And then we're going to create a seam along each corner by bringing the two corner pieces together. And if you're using a fabric that's patterned on one side, this will be the inside edge. So just bring the two corners, or the two edges rather, together like so. And you might want to use your sewing machine, but I'm actually going to hand stitch mine. Use as small a stitch as you can, and with this I'm using a back stitch. And I'm just a couple of millimetres there below the edge of the fabric. We just want to do this at each corner. So you just want to do a line of stitches about 20 millimetres or 3/4 of an inch, or if you're using a different thickness foam, just so it just nicely covers the foam. And you've got a couple of stitches there extra at the bottom. And then fold in your next corner. So once you've stitched up each corner, turn that the right way round and just poke your finger into the corner to push that out. And then place the mattress in sort of foam side down. Just bend it a bit to get it in there. Like that. And that should fit nicely into all of the corners, but if not, you can just trim a little bit off the card or off of the foam. And then you want to just snip away a corner at each corner. So just snipping out a triangle at each corner. Like that. And then just apply a little bit of glue around the outside edge of the card. I'll just use this scraper to spread that about. And then you can glue over these edges. Apply a little bit more where you've glued the top and bottom edges down for the side edges to stick. And then pull those over as well. And don't pull too tightly as you'll misshape the foam, but you just want a nice neat edge. A little bit more glue under that corner. And then that can be left to dry, and then we'll add another piece of fabric to the back here, and then we can attach the mattress to the actual bed frame. So once that's nice and dry, just cut a piece of fabric to cover the bottom of the mattress. You can just leave a slight border around the edges. And then again apply glue to the bottom and just spread that around. A bit more along that edge. get your piece of fabric in place. Press all these sort of corner joins down. And once again, just leave that to dry, and then we can attach it to our bed frame. So once the glue has dried on your mattress, apply just a little bit of glue to each slat. And then use your spreader just to even that out. Take it right along to the end of each slat. And then just put your mattress into place. And press that down. And we don't want to use clamps or anything here because it will dent the foam. So I'm just going to pop a book on there. Go that way. Just to weigh that down while the glue dries. Okay, so for the undersheet you want to cut 2 pieces of fabric, and I'm using the sort of flowered fabric with the backing of the checked, but you could use 2 pieces of the same if you wanted to. And I've just written down the measurements here in millimetres and inches. So 172 by 142 millimetres, 6 3/4 inches by 5 5/8, and I'm going to allow for a 6 millimetre or 1/4 of an inch hem, and that's allowed for in these measurements. So I then draw the hem around the edge, which helps to keep the stitching straight. And then at one edge, which will be your bottom edge, just sort of mark off a section there for the opening, and I've done it about 1 inch or 25 millimetres from each end, but it doesn't have to be precise, just enough for you to fold that back through. And this will be at the bottom, so if you've got a pattern that, like stripes or something, that needs to be the right way round, that will be cut on the long measurement. And that will then be at the bottom. And when we put that onto the bed, that will then fold over like so. Okay, so I'm going to pin these 2 pieces together, and then I shall begin stitching. Once you've stitched those 2 pieces of fabric together, trim around the seams, apart from along the edge where you have the opening, because then that will leave us a thicker piece of fabric to apply the glue to. So go as close to the stitches as you can, obviously without cutting into them. And then turn the piece the right way round. And then use something like a paintbrush with a rounded end, just to push those corners through. Like that. And then fold the seam inwards and just pull that quite tightly. And I'm just creasing along each edge of the fabric there. And then I just want to glue those 2 seams together. So apply the glue on the sort of bottom edge there, using your cocktail stick. Spread that all the way along, and then stretch the fabric again, and those seams will go together, and then press it down like that. So once the glue has dried, fold over about 1 inch at the top there and just crease that in, just gently, and then apply glue along the edges and along the top. And then fold that down, press it into place, and again you can just use a few pegs at each side just to hold that together while the glue dries. When the glue has dried, turn the piece over and apply glue along each edge. And then just very carefully bring the bed in and place it so that it's sort of sitting centrally across the bed, like that. So you've got an even overhang at each side here. And then just lay it on and then just curl it over, and the glue will be sticking alongside the wood, the edge there. Make sure you've got a little bit of wood showing underneath. Just press it down, and the same on the other side. And again, we're going to use pegs to hold this in place. And just leave the pegs on until the glue begins to take. You don't want to leave them on there too long, as it'll start to dent the fabric. So just leave them for sort of 5 minutes or so, and then you can remove them. So the same as the undersheet, I've cut 2 pieces of fabric to make the bedspread. I'm using my pattern and the plain fabric. And I've written the measurements down here again. So 162 by 132mm. That's 6 3/8 of an inch by 5 1/4 inches, and again I'm doing a 6mm or 1/4 of an inch hem, and that's allowed for within those measurements. So once again I've drawn my hem around, and again at the sort of one short end I've just sort of made a mark 25mm in, and I'll leave that open so that we can put our wad in inside. And then these can be stitched together. Once you've stitched your bedspread, cut a piece of wadding to go inside and make it just slightly smaller than the bedspread, so I've just left a small border around all edges. Now because we're going to be sort of folding one end of the bedspread over, I find this to be a little bit too thick, so just very carefully peel away the top layer, and that piece can then be used for something else. And then just fold it, sort of concertina it like that, and just push it into the opening, and then sort of when it's in there, flatten it out again and push it into the corners. like putting the duvet cover on at home, really. Only easier. And then just hold one end and you can just sort of shake it down. Just have a peep inside and make sure that it's going into all of the corners. And you can use the end of your paintbrush again here. Just sort of push it in to the corners if it's not sort of working. And then again, we're just going to glue those hems together at the bottom there. So again, just put that out of the way. Just apply the glue along that inside hem. And then if you pull the corners apart, those hems will go together. Press them down. And again, I'm just going to pop a few pegs on there to hold that together. Once your seam has dried, you can try the piece on the bed and just fold over the top just so you've got a bit of your undersheet showing. And once again you can glue that flap down and then we'll attach it to the bed. So once the glue has dried, again apply glue down these sides. And then place that centrally over the bed. So you've got the sort of same amount hanging down on each side. And press it down. And I've got these mini clamps here. I couldn't fit pegs on actually over the edges of the bed, so I'll use these clamps. And I just want to leave them on there until the glue begins to take, not for a long time, as again I don't want to dent the fabric. See if I can get that just on the corner there. And if you haven't got any clamps that will fit over the base of the bed, you can just sort of hold it into place until the glue begins to take, and that's what I'm going to do in this bottom corner because that one's not going on. And that'll only be for a minute or so, so just press it down so the fabric begins to stick. So when I'm making pillows or cushions, I like to do it so that the join is at the back. I find that if you just cut two pieces and sew them together, you get like an arch where the join is. So I always do it this way. So you'll need to cut 3 pieces, so one which will be your main piece for the front, and then the back will be made up of 2 pieces. And I've again written down the measurements here. So for the front you just need one piece that's 80 by 45 millimeters. That's 3 1/8 of an inch by 1 3/4 inches. And then for the back sections you'll need 2 pieces measuring 80 by 28 millimeters. That's 3 1/8 by 1 1/8 of an inch. So with your back pieces, just draw your line again 6 millimeters or 1/4 of an inch from this top edge, and leave a large gap in the middle there for the fill-in, and I've just sort of done it 20mm or 3/4 of an inch from each side. And again, draw your line around your larger piece, your front piece, 6mm, 1/4 of an inch around each edge. And then you'll begin by stitching together your 2 back pieces, just across there and there. And then when you've done that, just open that out and press down the seam just with your fingers, like that. And then you'll put these 2 pieces together face to face, or right side to right side, and then you'll stitch all the way round your larger piece. I'm just going to pin these together. To fill my pillows or cushions, I use sesame seeds, and I just find that it gives the piece a more heavier look than normal sort of stuffing. So you can use sesame seeds or flax seeds, just any sort of tiny little seeds. And to get them in there, I'm going to use this funnel, but if you haven't got one of these, you could just use a piece of paper just sort of rolled into a funnel. And you don't want to overfill it. I normally just go to the sort of top of the funnel nozzle and spread them around in there and sort of see how that feels. I think I'll just put a few more in. That should be enough. And then you can either stitch or glue the pillow opening together, and I'm going to try glue on this one. Squeeze them together. And that can be left to dry. Okay, so that completes part 2 of this tutorial. And if you like to add this lovely crocheted bed runner and cushion to your bed, then please join me in part 3. Bye for now.